Gibran. So it's not every day that we sit down with someone who's taken not one, but four apps to number one in the App Store. It's pretty, I think, fair to say that there's something here as far as the process or as far as the strategy goes that I'm very keen to get into. Yeah, now founding Lightreel, which is kind of a way, I think, to materialize some of your learnings and help other founders or other people do the same, which is amazing. So I want to get into all of that. I'm very happy to have you. If you just want to level set for everyone that's listening, tell us a little bit about what you have done.
Yeah. No, first off, I appreciate you having me on this podcast. I'm a big fan of Kudus Media, honestly, and that's not just like glazing you guys because I'm on here or anything. I've actually been like following you guys for the past few months. The content you guys put out, the reviews I've heard from my friends about you guys has just been amazing. But in terms of my background, I've actually been building apps since seventh grade. So that's probably what, like 8, 9 years ago at this point. So I built my first social network back once I was in middle school. That completely flopped, obviously. It took me like a year to build that out. Then I came back to building apps around 11th grade. That first app, I did my first UGC back in 11th grade, but that UGC was getting every single person in my high school to post it on their Instagram story. And then everyone in my high school was using the app for one day. Everyone was talking about it. Like it was the coolest thing in the high school. And then the next day it completely disappeared. No one talked about it again. Then I took another break. I went to college, freshman year. I didn't build anything. Sophomore year, I started building an app called Goal Group. And that's when I first started doing UGC on TikTok. So Goal Group took me around a year to build, and it was an app where you can make a group with your friends and hold each other accountable for your goals. So that completely flopped. But then I pivoted to my workout group, and that's the first time I went number one in the App Store. So we got like 40,000 downloads in a day, like 300,000 downloads over the next few months, just through UGC and purely through TikTok. And this was in like 2021, I think. So UGC wasn't really a thing back then. I was just making videos like in my bedroom pretty much. And then over the next few years, I just continued pumping out a bunch of different apps. Many of them went number one in December of 2025. So a few months ago, I went number one overall. So we did 1.5 million downloads in like 3 or 4 days. We were above ChatGPT, above Gemini, above everything. So that was like my moment, like I made it.
Congrats. Congrats. I think it's very well deserved. With which app was this in December 25?
This is 2025 wrap. So it basically took your camera roll and it came up with these like insights about your year. So we're just very, very viral and people were just sharing with their friends and making TikToks about.
Yeah, very nice. So let's go back to my workout group. That was the first one that went number one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How was it? Were you doing all the videos yourself? How was the whole UGC thing for
Yeah,
that?
yes. So the interesting thing is before my workout group, I had Goal Group, and Goal Group was the exact same app as my workout group, except it was for goals in general, not just working out, and that completely flopped. Then I just changed a few things within the app to make it specifically focused on working out. And the very first video I posted for that, I remember I posted it at like 7 p.m. And by like 11 p.m. or 12 a.m., it was already at like 100,000 views. And all I did was change the framing of the original app and niched it down to a specific audience that it resonated a lot more with. The feature set was exactly the same. It was just the framing of how I pitched the app to people. So that was very, very easy to go viral just because the app was inherently a viral, niched down concept.
This is very interesting. This is something I could talk about this all day. Let me see how to ask this. From positioning the apps to building a lot of different apps to then, trying a lot of different things in marketing, how do you see from all of the kind of possibilities what the non-negotiables are for an app that goes number one in the App Store?
Yeah. To go number one, so I think one problem a lot of teams have is that their marketing and their product is very disjoint, meaning that they'll have like 2, 3 random guys running marketing and then an engineer and they don't sync up or they're not very like, they don't have a tight feedback loop. And to make something go viral, you need to be constantly iterating both on your content and let your content inform how you change your product. So you might notice that once I mention XYZ thing, for example, let's say you have an app to record notes for meetings, for example, right? And let's say you keep posting on TikTok and finally you get one hit, and that hit is I'm recording notes for my lectures. And every time you mention lecture in your videos, the videos get 3 or 4 times more views. So if your product team and your marketing team is very in sync, obviously like you'll start focusing the App Store screenshots on lectures. You'll start focusing the icon and the names and everything on lectures. Obviously, that's a very like broad, like basic example, but there's very nuanced things that you can like fine tune your app to work a lot better on TikTok, basically.
Yeah, I love this. And I think just from our experience, I think this is one thing we try and build a lot into founders and into teams is try and make them understand that also what happens on TikTok, what happens on socials is usually product validation as well, kind of in terms of positioning. So from what you said, it seems like it's not really just niche down. It's adjust the positioning to what's working on the marketing, right? And kind of be in sync with that. How do you think that affects then the marketing going forward? Because that's a loop, right? So something worked in marketing, you tweak the product a little bit. How do you think that then affects the marketing going forward?
So I imagine so let me think from one of my own apps, right? So for example, things with you, the couples bucket lists we had. So basically what that was is you create a bucket list with your significant other, and then you take a photo every time you do one of the items on the list. And we basically found it was going really, really viral with teenagers. It's like young couples or honestly best friends. A lot of best friends who were girls were using it, like they were in high school and things like that, and they were just doing activities together they liked. Like we saw that in our comment sections and the people making videos about it. So we made the app feel a lot cuter, not in like a weird way. It was just like kind of the design felt a lot more like friendlier and things like that. And then we just changed like the app where we had like Polaroid pictures and stuff like that, which resonates a lot with Gen Z. And then we started making our marketing content use those new features. So we had TikToks where like the Polaroids were like stack on top of each other from the app and things like that. And it became this like reinforcing loop where we tweak the app, launch a new feature, would resonate more with a certain audience. We tweaked the messaging more for the audience, and it just kept compounding basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting, and I think yeah, um, if the kind of product then can work as well as just kind of a visual standalone short video,
Mhm.
that's a huge plus, and that's compounding, like you said. I fully agree. So when we let's go back to the first app, just so we have a bit of a timeline here. So you were saying you were doing the UGC. What did that mean at the time? So you were doing all the videos yourself. Did you ever think about kind of branching out and doing other things, or was there a point where you started doing other apps? How did that journey look like early on, from taking my workout group number one and then to kind of having the next hit you had?
Yeah, yeah. So very early on at the beginning of my app development journey, I was very focused on social apps. Like I'd seen The Social Network in the seventh grade, and that movie is what inspired me to start programming and making apps. So I just really wanted to make like a social networking app that everyone used. It's like everything I was building was like, let's build a social networking app. Let's build a social networking app. Let's build a social networking app. So my workout group, I did the UGC entirely by myself. But in my head, it wasn't UGC. It was just I loved this product so much, and I genuinely wanted to share it with the world. I think that's what made it resonate with so many people, is that it was a very authentic story. And I think that's what UGC is. It hasn't really changed from 2021 to 2025 or 2026. The things that go viral is always just an authentic story. And you might be saying it's much, much harder to go viral now than in 2021. It's because a lot of the stories are becoming inauthentic because you're trying to manufacture these like virality, like almost formulaically. And it's not really authentic, and you're not really telling a story that's emotionally charged anymore. So my workout group happened, and things with you, and then slowly I started systemizing it, where we started hiring creators, we started managing creators, and became this process where I'd come up with an app idea, I'd test it out, I'd pay some small creators in like the Philippines, see how well it did, and then hire some more creators, like 2 or 3 people, work very closely with them, and it became this almost system where I could scale apps and build apps very quickly.
Very nice. This is amazing. So it was almost like it was working almost as an app studio, where you
Yeah.
were kind of pushing different apps out. Were you using? You said you kind of got those creators to post some things about the app, kind of validate. Was that the way you were validating the product, or rather, how were you validating the new products you were trying out? Was it solely through, a few TikTok videos with those creators? How was that working?
Yeah, so honestly, I became really fast at making apps. I could make an app within like a week or something. And this was before vibe coding, so I was just making the apps from scratch. So I just get some creator, pay them 50 or $100, and then see how it performed. Maybe try a few other creators, put in like $1,000 over like 2 or 3 weeks, make a few videos myself. If it all completely fell flat, like I pivot or think about like what do I need to change in the app basically.
Nice. Nice. And how long did it take you from from my, the first app, my workout group, until the next one you had, go number one? What was the timeline like?
So back then, my timeline between apps was very, very long. So I'd finish my workout group, then I'd launch like three mini social networks that no one has ever heard of. And then like 2 or 3 years later, I'd be like, okay, you know what? Let me make a simple app and make it go viral again. So like 2021 was my workout group. Then I did things with you right once I moved to New York. So I think that was end of 2023. And then after that, I started launching like five, six, maybe like 7 or 8 apps in like 2024, 2025. That's when I started like getting into my rhythm and just churning them out basically.
Very nice. This is crazy, honestly. So, um, how do you go about building? You've obviously done it successfully, and from what I'm hearing, this is almost exclusively through UGC with creators. How do you go about creating a strategy, deciding on a direction to go for? It is very hard to have an authentic story. So, how do you make sure that was in fact happening with the new products?
Yeah, I will say a lot of my virality was due to me having really good relationships with my creators. And a lot of times, like there was a large gap between one app and the next one, at least until very recently. So the most important thing was forming a good relationship with my creators and ensuring that our incentives were aligned. Because a lot of the times they would be the ones finding the new formats. Like they'd be texting me at like 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. like, yo, Jabron, I found this new format. It's blowing up. And that's only because like I was actually there for them. Like I would, help them with their college essays, or if they needed any advice about anything with like, if they were trying to build their own apps or learn about how programming and stuff, I'd help them with that too. So those relationships is what allowed me to keep going viral because they wanted me to succeed and I wanted them to succeed as well.
Very nice, very nice. Was there a structure you had, like on the relationship side? How many creators did you have that were working closely with you?
Most of the times, like for most of the apps, there's only like 2 to 4 creators until very recently. For things with you, we scaled to 10 creators at one point, then we scaled to 50 at one point, then we cut back down to 20 or 30, and then we cut back down to like 7 to 10 because having like 7 or 10 high quality relationships that we're managing closely was just performing a lot better for us than having 50 kind of loose people.
So I think a lot of people in the space talk about volume as like, the holy grail of UGC or of, just, yeah, marketing for consumer apps. What's your take on that? Because it seems that the strategy was not that centered around volume. It seems that it's much more about relationships or nurturing the right ones at least, and kind of having, yeah, authentic stories come out of that. How do you think about that, about volume as a a metric here?
Yeah, I think it really depends on who you are and what you're trying to do. For example, me, I was just a solo bootstrapped founder and I was just trying to promote my own apps, right? There's other companies that they have this almost systemized approach, and for them, doing things at scale makes sense because they can hire creator managers and then sub managers. Like for example, Jenny AI's team is like not their team. The number of creators they manage, I think, is huge, at least from my understanding. But it's because they have a very systemized thing and they're like brute forcing UGC and like it's a huge system they have. If you want to go that route, you can go that route. But if you're trying to, both the routes are very valid. I'm not going to lie. So it kind of depends entirely on what you're trying to do. I think there's merit to having 50 creators, and I think there's merit to having 5 or 10 creators. Just make sure you're able to manage them well. You're not just throwing them all into a group chat and never checking in on them again.
How did you find the right creators? How do you make sure that the relationships you had were actually the right ones?
Yeah, yeah. See, so first off, they're all like mostly, let me think. I always, you kind of, so a lot of it was just from the first call. So I'd find people on TikTok. SideShift was a great resource for finding creators as well. But I'd find them like on TikTok. I'd see their email in their bio. I set up a call. And on that first call, you can kind of see how genuine they are and how enthusiastic they are. And from there, maybe you do like 1 or 2 weeks with them. You see how it's working out. And it just kind of naturally becomes evident after 1 or 2 weeks, like who are the people who are leading this campaign and coming up with new hooks and like really making your campaign like succeed, and who are people who will like follow your instructions and do well but they're not independently coming up with stuff. And then who are people who you really have to push and like handhold to get through things. So it just becomes very clear after a few weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is amazing. This is remarkable. I've spoken to enough founders to know that, yeah, I think from the highest performers I see, I think there's a big focus on creator relationships. In your example, I mean, you were doing this all in house, all alone. So it seems to me that Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. This is amazing. So let me ask you just one final thing. I was thinking about creators. Did you ever come up with the different apps you were doing? Did you ever come up with this kind of system around hooks or formats or styles to follow? Or like you said, creators many times found it themselves or found those themselves. Was it more just focusing on a few fundamentals and then kind of the rest was up to creators? How did you see that?
Yeah, actually, one thing I want to say real quick is that most of the apps I was doing the marketing for myself and stuff like that, but I don't want to discredit on things with you, my co-founder Hamza. So I built the app, and he led up a lot of our marketing efforts. So Hamza was like a great asset, and like I can't discredit him. Like he was just an amazing
Nice.
person to work with. But in terms of hooks and stuff like that, I think every viral format is a synthesis of previous trends or previous hooks and things like that. So there's a lot of creativity, but you need to be watching TikTok or somehow ingesting TikTok or content a lot. I mean, that's why I built Lightreel to help with that. So a lot of it was just seeing like what are our competitors doing, what are people who are doing UGC for different apps, what are they doing, and just kind of synthesizing those hooks, presenting them to our creators, giving them enough freedom where they could like experiment with stuff, but also constrained where it's like they have like we're going in this direction, so we could like actually quantify, is this experiment working? Are these hooks working? Is this angle working? Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, just to finalize here on the side, for founders watching, we talked to a lot of even just early stage VC backed teams. What would you say to those people who are trying to figure out how to use short form or how to use TikTok, how to use creators as their distribution channel? What would you advise them on as far as this whole thing goes on how to start, what to look for, how to build your sense of virality, how to kind of manage these relationships? What would be kind of your most valuable advice for those people watching?
Yeah. Um, so if you're a team that is building your own product and doing marketing in-house, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to think about your product from the perspective of someone watching it on TikTok. And you might originally think that that's actually diluting the product or you're making like, a degenerate product by doing that. And I originally had that mindset, but what you actually find is by focusing on making your product understandable in a 15-second hook, you're actually making your product a lot better because it becomes a lot more focused, it becomes a lot more clear, and visually it just becomes a lot more packaged, I guess. You know what I mean? So I would say like try to design your UI around something that people can see on TikTok and like they immediately are like, what is this? I want to do this. I want to see this. And that will lead to dividends in other places too, on your Facebook ads, on your customers naturally referring each other because the app just becomes a lot simpler and a lot more focused that way.
This is great. I mean, this is honestly great advice. Did you ever find that then, as time goes by, you kind of added features naturally, or was it always just super focused on one value prop or one main thing, adjusted to short form, for example? Over time, was there a change to this mindset, or was it always like this?
So with my workout group, people would tell me like, can you add this? Can you add this? Can you add this? So the app eventually became like you had the ability to nudge your friends to work out, and you had islands which would get better and better over time, and you had badges, and you had the ability to log your workouts with how many reps and how many sets you did, and you had text notifications, and you had alarm clock notifications, and you had like 30 different things. It just became too complex, and I thought like the more surface area I covered, the more viral the app would be. But what I found is that that wasn't the case. Everyone was using only like one or two features in the app, and I was just diluting the actual core value proposition for no reason. So with things with you, I was very intentional about like people were asking for certain different features, but I was very focused on just let me just keep it a list and then taking photos to fill that list up. And if that value prop was good enough, that should carry your UGC and everything we do just based off those simple features. I mean, if you look at Coco Note, for example, they're recording your lectures and getting summaries. And obviously they have a lot more sub features and stuff now before they got acquired. But their core value prop was that one simple thing. If you look at Cal AI, it's literally just take a photo and get the calories back, right? Umax, all these different apps are all just very focused on one specific thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is reassuring as well because I've been going down this path for a while and kind of really, being on people's backs, just saying, hey, you just need to focus. You need to cut out all the noise and just focus on this one thing. So this is great, man. Gibran, congrats on what you've done, honestly. Last question from me on the kind of UGC video side, at least for the apps. When you look back at the biggest ones, so now you got correct me if I'm wrong, 1.5 million downloads in 3 days for 2025 Wrapped. Are there patterns you see with these winning apps or winning periods, or is there anything you see that's common on what made those specific things work at that specific time? Is the trends something that's happening that makes it culturally relevant as well to kind of boost the whole thing, or is it just kind of a compilation of all these efforts you just talked about in one place?
Yeah, so for 2025 Wrap, that was almost engineered in a lab to go viral in the sense that everything was built with the mindset of like, how can this explode on TikTok? So obviously the hooks were perfectly done, but then also the app, every single screenshot, I literally was thinking like, how would this look on TikTok? How would this look on TikTok? I spent days and days and days and like hundreds of hours, honestly, just optimizing stuff in Figma to look as pretty as possible on TikTok. Like every single sentence, every single word was perfectly optimized for TikTok. And we had tracking on every single thing. Like what slide do they get to? What are they sharing? What are they screenshotting? What are they screenshotting and sharing to Snapchat? What are they screenshotting and sharing to Instagram? We had all those pieces of information. So it was almost mathematical. Like we saw what video would blow up, how many people downloaded the app, how many people shared the app. And it almost became like this, like, I guess this like surgical operation. Yeah. And that was just kind of made in the lab to go viral. So.
That's insane. Is there anything besides like obviously the kind of UI and it visually being adjusted to TikTok? Is there anything else that you think also makes that go viral? Like, anything with emotions you pull with certain screens, or the kind of angle you're going at with the value proposition, or was it mainly just, okay, this is the product side, I'm going to make it visually, you know, congruent with what I want, and then all the rest is marketing? How do you see that?
It was mainly just the product side. I mean, it was also the end of 2025, so naturally people were looking for Wrapped and things like that, so the timing was good too. Mainly it was just you see the product, you want to download it, and then you go download it. It was pretty much that simple.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. That's great. That's amazing. So you do all this, and then you pivot into Lightreel, which in Lightreel's own words, it's the first AI that doom scrolls, which is amazing. And what was the idea behind Lightreel? How did you pivot?
Yeah, so while I was building these TikToks and posting on Twitter, one thing I realized is that a lot of people were DMing me, asking me questions about how do I do UGC, what videos should I do, can you help me market my app, please? And they're throwing like crazy amounts of money. And there's honestly so many people who want help with UGC. And it almost seems like there's not enough like supply to fill up that amount of demand. I mean, I've heard from some agencies that they're getting like hundreds and hundreds of inbound requests per week and they just can't handle it. And I realized like a lot of what I was doing was just I was spending like a crazy amount of time just scrolling TikTok every day. So I realized like, what if there was this intelligence layer built on top of that where you could ask, this AI that analyzes hundreds of thousands of videos. So you could ask it like, what videos are trending today? But more importantly, like, what hook should I do for my app specifically? Or like, what is wrong with my video specifically? It's very personalized feedback on how you should do UGC for your product specifically.
Okay, let's walk through that, because this is one I'm super invested in. So, from different things Lightreel can do, it can give feedback on videos. It can give, it can give you creative strategy insights. You have your find creators, content strategy, content analysis, trend research. Let's walk through some of these and the kind of idea behind that. So, which one do you think is the most valuable? Why? Happy to go into any of this because this is very interesting.
I really like content strategy mainly because it synthesizes so much information intelligently where I've given this to people who are already running campaigns that are doing tens of millions of views per month for their app, if not hundreds of millions certain months. And they're finding it very, very useful because it's digging so deeply into certain niches and certain creators and synthesizing these trends across thousands of different categories and apps and products that they just couldn't do themselves. You know what I mean? So that I find really useful because it actually, even for Lightreel itself, I've asked Lightreel, how should I market this on Instagram Reels? And the example videos it showed me, I would have never found myself. And I'm so surprised that it's synthesizing these strategies. Like it's generally blowing my mind as well.
Yeah, we've used this ourselves, and this is one of the best things I've tried in the space for this type of stuff. This is insane, and I think it's very hard to have like an AI do this correctly because there's a lot of nuance with finding relevant strategies. So I'm not sure how you came to this, but this is insane. And as far as like analysis goes, it's also something that caught my eye. So can you expand on this one a little bit,
Yeah, so
Gibran?
I kind of thought through what do I do once I'm analyzing a video, like mentally? And I think I was only able to create this because I had a strong background in doing UGC and also a strong engineering background. But what I do once I'm evaluating a video is internally, I'm kind of synthesizing and comparing it to other videos. I'm looking at trends, I'm looking at what's going on in TikTok, and then subtly internally, I somehow create this like layer in my head of like, this is what a good video should look like, and this is what a bad video should look like. And that's constantly being adjusted in my head based off trends, based off what video I saw for the day, etc. So I kind of encoded what I do inside of Lightreel. So it kind of figures that out automatically, the same way I do it.
This is amazing. This is amazing. I'm not sure now here with like trend research and find creators, there's anything specific that you want to get into, but this is also, I think, very interesting for other people, for other teams, other founders. With like finding niche creators, for example, it can even match visuals, which is crazy. So here's a skater punk aesthetic. So yeah, well, yeah. What do you think when you're doing this for finding creators? Because you mentioned a lot of what you did early on was finding creators that had, like, for example, an email bio, book a call, and kind of then assess from there. Is that where this came from as well? It's like, okay, let me help people find creators for their thing.
Yeah, so there are a lot of great platforms already out there for finding creators, like SideShift. I'm good friends with the people who run that, and I still use SideShift to find creators. But sometimes I need really specific things. Like for example, for Gabby, is that what it's called? Gabble. What I'll be
Gabble.
doing is like we need certain types of creators who have built content talking to AI chatbots before, and finding that myself, it will honestly take me like hours and hours and hours. And what I'm gonna do like tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'm just gonna go to Lightreel. I'm gonna say find me creators who have videos arguing with AIs or talking with AIs, and they have like less than 3,000 followers, and maybe they're college aged, esque, etc. Whatever my perfect profile is, and I've seen that it generally works pretty well at finding those type of people.
Nice. This is insane. This is insane. And I think this
Thank
is
you.
going to be infinitely valuable for people who are looking to do, especially like niche products, etc. And then obviously trend research. So yeah, anything here,
I
Gibran?
mean, it's kind of the same thing as content
Yeah,
strategy. I don't want to, just
yeah,
hate myself too much, but generally, yeah, it just synthesizes a lot of information. Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, you've tried to kind of take what has worked for you and build it into a tool that can, help other people at scale. It seems to me that was more or less the idea. Why do you think? Just this came to mind. Why do you think the whole UGC world for apps and for consumer brands has become so dominant? Like, why, why did it change from like influencer marketing or your traditional paid ads? Why now UGC? What do you see? What do you think changed for that to be like the main thing?
Hmm. That's a good question. I'd imagine there's a bunch of macro trends that kind of make that happen. One is that Facebook ads and stuff are becoming increasingly competitive. So to get a good ROAS on Facebook, you need like signal engineering. You need like teams just focused on like the content strategies and adjusting like your budgets for different campaigns. And it's just like you're competing against people with huge teams that are just spending like insane amounts of money, and it's really hard to compete on that end. There's that, and then also with the popularity of TikTok, like just the amount of users using it from 2018 through 2023. Obviously, there's that. So you have number one, it's kind of easier than paid ads. Number two, I mean, it's not necessarily easier than paid ads. It's kind of a different game, but it's maybe more approachable than paid ads. The popularity of TikTok and things like that. And then I guess number three is that there's just kind of so many ads and people are so tired of seeing ads and they just kind of naturally skip through them at this point that seeing someone authentic, like a normal creator just talking about something or showcasing something, it's a lot easier for people to resonate with the story as opposed to a brand. So I think that's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. And zooming out, I think I've heard a lot of people also say that UGC is getting saturated and that everyone's doing it. Where do you see this going in the future? Do you see any? Do you think it's a dying market? Do you think this is going to grow even more? How do you see it in the coming years?
I think as more people start doing UGC, you'll naturally see a lot more low quality attempts at UGC. And if you just think about it, let's say 2022, the people doing UGC are all cutting edge, they're tapped into marketing, they're finding this new edge. So naturally, like 80, 90% of UGC is going to be very high quality. It's going to be going viral. There are going to be a lot of unique stories and just genuine like brand building. And then let's say you get to 2026 and now you have 100 or 1,000 times the number of people doing UGC. Naturally, the percentage of high quality UGC is going to drop from 70 or 80 or 90% to 20, 30, 40%. And it makes it appear that UGC is becoming useless, but it's really just because the number of people doing it. If you look at the raw numbers, I said the absolute number of people succeeding with UGC is just constantly increasing, whether that's linear or exponentially, I'm not sure. But I just keep hearing success stories from UGC.
This is a very good take. I love this. And like one thing I think is hard to grasp. So in any industry, take sales for example. Like there's people who are naturally inclined for sales, and for people who aren't, it's very hard to understand what it means to be naturally inclined to sales. This is just an example, like in a parallel industry. And what it means is just, obviously being charismatic, being an extrovert usually helps, things of that nature. With virality, I see the same thing. It's like there's people with an innate sense of what would work on socials, what is it that could go viral, and there's almost like this viral sense that these people have, like a natural inclination to it, but it's very hard to define. Have you found a way to define or understand what is it that makes something go viral? Like how do you build that viral sense and what that is?
I was showing you my first ever TikTok video I posted right before this call, so I can show it again right now. It's so bad, and I think it really helps conceptualize things. And that was 6 years ago, and it was awful. Like me and you both can name like 30 different things that are wrong with that video just from those 5 seconds. But just posting helps you naturally build that viral sense. You naturally see like what is getting views, what is not getting views. And I was a very camera shy person at first, but once you just start putting yourself out there, it almost becomes like this fun little game. Like, how can I get more views? This is working, this isn't working. And honestly, I think if you're at least average intelligence and very ambitious and very hardworking, you can get UGC to work. You just need to keep pushing and keep trying and just changing your framing and see what works and what doesn't.
That's a great point. And do you think, for example, for people who don't know, because I imagine for a lot of technical founders, it's hard to grasp like what it means to be like, to go viral. Like it's very hard to understand. Like it's not something direct. So would you, because posting helps you build that kind of sense, would you recommend them, starting posting content themselves, or already going and getting creators? Like, or rather, who do you think should go and start themselves, or go and build a team of creators from day one? Do you think there's an approach that's a winning approach, or do you think it varies? Like, I'm keen to hear your thoughts there.
I think everyone should start by posting content themselves, because it naturally lets you see like how does making videos work and what's working and what's not working. I mean, I just saw, I think the Hinge CPO or CMO, like one of the ex-Hinge employees or someone high up there, he was launching a new app. I think it was called Lasso or something. And he was just recording these videos. This guy's probably worth like millions of dollars. And he's just recording these videos on his phone, like walking down the street, talking about the new app he's building. So if he can do it, and he's this extremely successful, rich guy who can hire as many creators as he wants to, if he can make the UGC videos, then you can as well. And it will just help you get in touch with your community, get better feedback about your product, and really understand how these videos work. And then you can tell your creators how to make better videos too.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think honestly that's true with any industry. Like if you're in touch with what's happening in the field, you can give much better advice, and you can get a lot further, I think. But yeah, I mean, this is great, Jibran. There's a lot of good insight here. So I have a few things on the AI side. People always ask me about AI for some reason. How do you think AI is gonna play into this whole thing? Like, there's AI video, there's AI carousels, there's AI image, there's AI everything. How do you think that's gonna play into UGC, short term versus long term?
So what goes viral on TikTok or Instagram Reels are things that are telling a unique story, right? So it was never difficult to create a video yourself. Like, you can create a video yourself in literally 10 seconds. I could record a video, take out my phone, record a video, and post it within the next 15 seconds, right? And with AI, I can create these videos just as quickly, right? So the issue was never actually creating the actual content. It was coming up with this unique story. So the accounts that are actually going viral with TikTok, you might see like they're doing like AI with like a historical person in a different setting explaining what happened in that historical moment, for example. Those AI videos took their creators hours and hours and hours to make. They took much longer than it would take you to make a normal video recording yourself. Or there's this guy selling t-shirts, like Azerbaijan t-shirts. I don't know if you've seen that guy on Instagram Reels. He has a whole team and he spends hours and hours and hours coming up with those ideas, right? So AI content can work, but it's not the bottleneck was never coming up with the videos, it was coming up with the unique story, and that's what's the difficult part, right? So if you're coming up with unique stories, it doesn't really matter if you're using AI or yourself. That was never the limiting factor, in my opinion.
This is, yeah, I agree. And I think, yeah, it's almost what you're saying is like, yeah, not even the idea, but the concept, the overall kind of foundation of what would make the video is where the value is. It's not the actual kind of production side because, yeah.
If something starts becoming viral and everyone's hopping on it, it no longer becomes unique and the value immediately goes to zero. So the second you can start standardizing something, it starts becoming less and less useful because it's not unique anymore. You know what I mean? So there always needs to be some uniqueness or some unique insight into the video.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, yeah, I think you're one of the first people that has, yeah, that had this take. So how do you come up with a unique story? I've read a tweet. I'm gonna pull it up after you answer this question. But how do you come up with a unique story? Do you have a process where you sit down? I've heard all sorts of different things where people have their own kind of creative processes, and I'm sure creators have these all the time. But like, how do you think about coming up with a story?
For me, since I'm building these products myself, I spend so long intimately just working with the product that by the time I'm ready to market it, I have this story already. Like I know who exactly it's meant for, like what struggles I went through building it, and I can tell like what emotions I felt while I was building it. Like I love my products like they're my own baby, right? So it becomes a lot more easier for me to recognize that these are the specific emotions that people are going to relate to. Like with Things With You, right? I spent a few months building that out. And the video I made for that was a video of me and my best friend. And it was like a day in our life. And we were just like, I made up a story like he's leaving New York. I'm saying goodbye with him. We're getting dinner together. We're going on the train together for the last time. And we just take a picture for the bucket list each time. And that got like 2 or 3 million views, but I was only able to do it because I was so intimately familiar with my product. If you're not intimately familiar with your product, or you're like a marketer that was hired for a team or something, I'd imagine a lot of it just comes down to synthesis of current trends and seeing what's currently going viral on TikTok and working backwards and seeing how that applies to your product.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to ask Jabran, because yeah, this is just something this is probably a selfish question, but like you were saying, you spent a lot of time with all these different projects. It seems to me that, for example, the 2025 rap was engineered to go viral. Things With You, it was also, it seems to me, very intentional. My workout group, like these things, you were building them and thinking about how is this going to look on short form. How is this going to look as a story for marketing, etc. I want to understand from you, like, what is it in the visual? Like, what is it that will make that appealing to a TikTok audience? Is it the color scheme? Is it the simplicity of what you're showing and then choosing what to show in that specific screen? Like, how do you come up with these things that will work on TikTok, for example?
So it's actually not that specific to TikTok. It's just building a good product that people want to use in general. So even if you look at, for example, non-BDC products, for example, like Lovable or I don't know, Delve or something like that, right? They're completely focused on B2B. But once you hear their tagline, it's so jarring. Like SOC 2 compliance in like hours or minutes. I don't know what their tagline is. Or Lovable, just build a website just through a prompt. At least once they originally came out, that was pretty cool. Or like these video game making things or whatever they may be. It's just the tagline is so jarring that once you hear the idea, you just want to go try it out. Now, obviously, so the ideas that I'm building and marketing on TikTok, the ideas are just naturally very jarring ideas, right? Like a bucket list with your significant other, that's like so cool. Like everyone wants to send it to their partner and do it together, right? So the ideas are just naturally really cool, unique ideas. Then on top of that, you make the visuals visually jarring and visually different from what is already out there. And that doesn't necessarily mean very bright colors exploding on the screen, although it can mean that. It just means like, what are people currently doing in the app space or in your category space, and how do you be unique from that? So for example, I mean, I know Lightreel is an AI chatbot, but this is kind of antithetical to that. But if you're building an AI product, maybe you don't do a chatbot and you do something that's more jarring visually or things like that with the new UX that might draw people in, things like that. But yeah, it's both the product side and the visual UX side as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a way? And I'm sorry, Jabran. I'm just gonna stay on this point because I love this. Do you have a way? Like, do you look at? I've heard people look at, like, there's a lot of these people doing like trends on X where they look at, like, TikTok search insights or creator search insights, for example, and look at like what people are talking about, new topics, new trends. Do you look at that at all, or things of that nature with like trends or new topics, new things, or is it just like, for example, things with you? What you're saying? It seems to me it's like this is like first, like, people will want to do it because it's like it makes, on the relationship side, it makes like a connection happen, like it makes it easier, right? And it's like people want to share it, people want to use it with their significant other, and it's something valuable, right? Because like people try to do it, they don't have time, and it's like, wow, this is an easy way to do it, amazing, right? So it's consumer, and it's like kind of shareable with someone. Do you find these ideas through a place, or is it just like, is there something you follow to come up with these, or like I'm fascinated.
I was never in the camp of like, oh, this app is going viral, let me clone it type of people. Like I've kind of seen those people on Twitter and they're like, man, this app is going viral. If you just made it for women, or they're like, man, there's this weight loss app for women. Why don't you go make an XYZ app for women? And they kind of like, it just feels kind of grimy. They kind of figure out the app ideas like that. I've always kind of just figured them out naturally. Like they just come from random sources of inspiration. Like things with you, I was watching this random like K drama or something, and K drama was like a Korean drama. It's like
Hmm.
this random romance TV show I was watching, and like in it, the main lead got together for the first time, and they did a bucket list together. It's like the girl came up with a list of things she wanted to do with her like husband or whatever, and they started doing every single item one by one and taking a photo together. I was like, that's a really cool idea. And then I just went and made it into an app basically. So inspiration is just kind of random for me. I'm not gonna lie.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think some of the best creative processes on earth are spontaneous. It comes from places that are completely unrelated to work. You can kind of, connect these different things into one place. So that's crazy. Let me share my screen. One of the things I want to go through with you here is one tweet that I actually sent our team. I don't know. Like, you might tell me, "Hey, Alex, this is, I wrote this, in 30 seconds. Didn't really think too much about it." I don't really care. I thought this was a great way to think about it because there's a lot of different things I can speak about this whole day. But like, first, it's like it seems to me that this is a great way to then compact a story on making a good video or a good UGC, and at the same time keeping your product at the center of it. So, do you want to walk me through kind of this whole thing here that I think was great?
So a lot of people were DMing me asking, how do I do UGC for my product? And they hadn't spent that much time making their own videos or watching TikTok. So my mindset with making this tweet was, how do I let people develop intuition on how to make videos? So how do you get that kind of viral sense? So obviously, if you've already been making TikTok videos and stuff before, this might not apply to you. And if you're just trying to, hire creators, maybe you do tell them to copy videos. But my thing was like, if you're just trying to make TikToks for yourself and for your own brand, you want to develop this intuition. And the way you develop this intuition is you constantly, almost mathematically, try different formats and try different things, and you slowly start optimizing them. And what that will do is each time as you optimize it, for example, I mentioned like making it a little bit shorter, making it a little bit more engaging. Each time you optimize it, you start seeing how it impacts the views. And that starts training this kind of internal model inside your head where you recognize that doing these things will make my videos perform slightly better. And if I do this, it performs slightly worse. By the end of these like 30 days, you kind of know what works and what doesn't work. And then you can immediately spot once one of your creators is doing something bad, you can tell them, hey, bring the camera closer to your face or use better lighting because you went through all of those things yourself methodically, basically.
Yeah, yeah. This is great, and I think this step three is one thing that I really really liked because it's like everyone talks about iteration and, yeah, looking at how the video performed and kind of iterating on it, but I think this really says a lot, Gibran, on like, okay, if you have experience, if you don't, doesn't really matter. Like this thing is always a good thing to follow. It's like, okay, every time I'm posting a new thing, I'm gonna try to make it a bit shorter, a bit more polarizing, a bit more engaging, and like, this just, to me, this was great. I really really like this tweet, and I think this is a great way to think about it. um yeah, I think a lot of people also struggle in just like going viral, not being able to plug in a product or plug in what they're doing. Just they try to kind of follow trends or use a sound. What's
Yeah,
the new trending sound? Bro,
I
it
see that all
doesn't
the
really
time.
matter.
all over Twitter.
Yeah. Did you think trending sounds like, because I see a lot of tactics, like, the tactics on trending audio and hashtags, and be careful with your warm up process. Like, how do you think about the tactics around these?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's like the things you have to do. Like, you need to warm up your account, you need to engage with people in your niche and things like that. But I keep hearing like these random, like almost rumors, which are kind of contradictory. It's like, man, you need to exit out of the app right after you post, or you need to not exit out of the app, or you need to get
Do a
X.
backflip.
Yeah, like all these different things. Like, it doesn't really matter. I've gotten videos like once I started posting for my workout group, Goal Group, I posted for like months and months. Never broke like 600 views. My workout group, the first video had 80,000 views or like 100,000 views, and I was in my bedroom laying down on my bed. It's just the product was cool and stuff. You know what I mean? And like with our creators, with things with you, we have people who like their first video gets 500,000 views. Other creators, it takes them 20 videos with the same format that the other creators went viral with to get even 50,000 views. So it's all very variable. Just warm up your account normally and just don't go too crazy worrying about like don't get too OCD about random things is my thought process.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. It's like, don't get lost in the tactics. Don't get lost in the little,
Yeah.
little. I also think that's a little like almost like a way of procrastination. It's like you
Mhm.
don't want to face the shit. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
stuff that's gonna hurt. Like you're gonna
You
have to make a
attribute it to
video.
other things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make a video. Probably gonna get 200 views. There's probably some friends might roast you for it. Like that's all good.
Yeah.
But because you don't want to deal with it, you're like, let me go back and see what the best hashtags are for this video. It's like, man,
The good thing about the TikTok algorithm, which helped me very early on, is if the video doesn't go viral, no one is going to see it. And if it does go viral, you succeeded. So you shouldn't feel afraid about posting.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And if anything, I mean, just create the account, tell no one, and just start. Anyway, Gibran, this is amazing. I'm sure there's like a lot more questions I'll remember after this conversation, but I'll shoot them over, and hopefully we do this again soon. We'll leave your socials in the description. So we'll leave your X, the link to Lightreel, and the links to any of the apps that are still live. If you're okay with that, is there anything you'd wanna say, share before I give you some of my last few questions here that I have, or are we good?
I guess to the audience, if you're watching this and you're struggling with UGC and you have no idea what you're doing, just go make a video like tonight. And if your account's not warmed up, then post it in 3 days. Otherwise, just post it tonight. And that's like the only way you're really going to learn. Just go post yourself on TikTok. That's like the only piece of advice I have.
That brings me to one of my two or three questions. The first one is, how do you prioritize? Do you think posting every day or focusing on quality of videos and maybe posting twice a week, for example? Which one do you prioritize?
I do both. I mean, high quality videos, even if they're really high, it's only going to take you an hour to make. So just make a high quality video every single day.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think a high quality video is? Like, it's obviously not studio level production. It's just, yeah,
Well,
like a
actually,
bit
there are
more.
some people doing like studio level productions. I don't know if you've seen those guys on Instagram Reels. They like have the cameras in like 10 different places in their bedroom. They're rotating around. They have these animations. Maybe if you're doing those videos, like you can do like one or two a week, right? But for normal people like us who aren't doing those crazy things, like just post every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And my last one is, everyone talks about product versus distribution. Product doesn't matter anymore. Now it's all about just making TikToks, or just the other way around. Like, product is everything. And like, how do you think about it? How do you think about product and distribution at this day and age?
I'd say they're the same thing. Your product is your distribution. It's what leads to your distribution, and your distribution can't work unless your product is good. So do not separate them into two separate categories that don't interact with each other.
That's great advice. I think that will help some of the listeners, some of the viewers also kind of reason with this thing of like, you don't need to build a product and then think about marketing. Just like, think about it from the perspective of marketing. This has been great, Gibran. You're obviously very knowledgeable, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully we do it again sometime
Definitely. Yeah.
soon.
Thanks so
And
much for having me on, man. This is amazing. I love the questions and everything.
appreciate you. And yeah, no, it's been great. And we'll for sure be using Lightreel in the near future. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. I
Amazing.
think, yeah, we'll report back.
Sounds good. I love it.
Great, man.